It began with something so ordinary that almost nobody thought it was worth mentioning. A woman stood at her kitchen window just after sunset, waiting for her husband to return home. Beyond the last row of houses, the forest stretched into darkness, its trees motionless against a sky slowly surrendering to night. Then, without warning, she felt it, that strange, unmistakable sensation that someone was staring directly at her. She looked outside. There was nothing, no movement, no voice, no footsteps, only the trees. She closed the curtains and dismissed the feeling as exhaustion. The next morning, her neighbor described the exact same experience. Within days, another family reported hearing slow footsteps circling their house long after midnight. A local farmer claimed his livestock became strangely agitated every evening at precisely the same time. Dogs that had wandered those woods their entire lives suddenly refused to go near the tree line after sunset. Children stopped taking shortcuts through the forest. Windows that had always remained open at night were quietly locked before darkness fell. No one claimed to have seen a monster. No one spoke of ghosts. At first, there was only one terrifying certainty. Someone, or something, was watching. History remembers wars, revolutions, and the rise of empires. Yet scattered across the world are places remembered for something far stranger, a single unexplained event that quietly changed an entire community. These stories rarely begin with dramatic discoveries. Instead, they begin with ordinary people noticing ordinary things that slowly stop feeling ordinary at all. Fear almost never arrives like an explosion. It arrives like a whisper. A sound heard once, a shadow noticed twice, a coincidence repeated 3 times. Then suddenly, an entire town begins asking the same impossible question. What is happening to us? This is not the story of one creature. Nor is it simply the story of one town. It is the story of how uncertainty can spread through a community more rapidly than any disease, how folklore can shape perception, and how the human mind struggles when confronted with experiences it cannot easily explain. Across history, remarkably similar accounts have appeared in places separated by oceans, languages, and centuries. Remote villages in Scandinavia spoke of silent figures standing at the edge of forests. Rural communities in Japan told stories of unseen presences watching travelers from mountain paths. Small towns across North America reported strange lights, unexplained sounds, and witnesses who insisted they had encountered something impossible. Most of these stories faded. A few never did. One of the most remarkable examples emerged in the autumn of 1966, in the quiet town of Point Pleasant. At first glance, Point Pleasant appeared completely ordinary. Nestled along the Ohio River, it was a peaceful American town where neighbors knew one another, children played outdoors until dusk, and life followed a familiar rhythm. Nothing suggested it would soon become one of the most famous mystery locations in modern history. Then everything changed. Late one November evening, 2 young couples were driving near an abandoned military facility known as the TNT area, a sprawling complex left behind after the Second World War. The concrete bunkers had long since fallen silent, reclaimed by dense woodland and overgrown vegetation. It was the sort of place teenagers visited simply because it felt isolated and mysterious. As their car rounded a corner, they later claimed they noticed 2 glowing red lights. At first, they assumed they belonged to an animal. Then the lights moved. Standing beside the road, according to their testimony, was a towering dark figure unlike anything they had ever seen. They described it as taller than a human being, with enormous wings folded against its body and bright red eyes reflecting in the darkness. Terrified, they accelerated. They later claimed the figure rose into the air and pursued their vehicle at extraordinary speed. Whether their interpretation was accurate remains intensely debated. What happened afterward, however, is firmly documented. Their story spread through Point Pleasant almost overnight. New witnesses emerged. Some reported strange lights over nearby hills. Others claimed to hear unusual sounds echoing through the abandoned military site. Several insisted they, too, had seen an enormous winged silhouette moving silently through the night. Local newspapers quickly began covering the growing mystery. Curiosity became fascination. Fascination slowly transformed into fear. People who had never met one another began describing remarkably similar experiences. Some insisted they felt an overwhelming sensation of being watched while walking alone. Others avoided certain roads entirely after sunset. Hunters who had spent years exploring nearby forests admitted they no longer entered them alone. The mystery was no longer confined to a handful of eyewitnesses. It had become part of the town itself. Psychologists have long observed that uncertainty changes the way human beings interpret their surroundings. When people believe an unusual event may be occurring, the brain naturally becomes more alert. Every unexpected sound receives greater attention. Every unexplained shadow appears more significant. Information that might once have been dismissed suddenly feels deeply meaningful. This process is not a sign of weakness. It is one of humanity's oldest survival instincts. For thousands of years, our ancestors survived by assuming that unexplained movement in darkness might represent danger. Better to mistake the wind for a predator than the predator for the wind. Yet this instinct creates an extraordinary paradox. The more frightened a community becomes, the more carefully everyone begins watching. And the more carefully everyone watches, the more unusual things they inevitably notice. Point Pleasant was not merely experiencing reports. It was experiencing expectation. People listened more carefully, looked longer into the darkness, remembered details they might previously have forgotten. Every conversation seemed to reinforce the next. Every new witness made previous accounts appear more believable. Yet something remarkable happened. Not everyone agreed. Scientists, skeptics, wildlife experts, journalists, and investigators all arrived with different explanations. Some suggested witnesses had encountered unusually large birds, particularly sandhill cranes, whose impressive wingspan and reddish markings around the eyes could appear startling under poor lighting conditions. Others proposed that abandoned military structures, unusual environmental conditions, stress, coincidence, and the natural tendency of stories to evolve through repeated retelling had combined to create one of America's most enduring legends. The witnesses strongly disagreed. Many insisted they knew exactly what ordinary birds looked like. Some maintained their accounts for the rest of their lives, despite decades of public skepticism. And that raises the question that has fascinated historians, psychologists, and mystery researchers ever since. If fear alone created the legend, why did so many independent witnesses remain absolutely convinced that something extraordinary had shared those nights with them? That question would become even more haunting in the months that followed. The reports did not stop. They multiplied. Teachers, factory workers, police officers, business owners, teenagers, and lifelong residents all began telling stories that sounded strangely familiar. Some described brilliant lights hovering over isolated fields before vanishing without a sound. Others claimed radios filled with static for no apparent reason. Telephone lines occasionally crackled with unexplained interference. A handful of witnesses even reported vivid nightmares that seemed impossibly real, leaving them with the unsettling feeling that someone had been standing beside their bed. No single event proved anything extraordinary had happened. Yet taken together, they created something far more powerful than evidence. They created expectation. And expectation has a remarkable influence on the human mind. Modern psychology suggests that once a community becomes convinced an unusual event may be occurring, ordinary experiences begin to acquire extraordinary meaning. A distant animal call suddenly sounds unfamiliar. A shadow cast by moonlight appears almost human. An unexpected power outage feels connected to rumors already spreading through the town. None of these reactions are irrational. They are deeply human. Our brains evolved to detect possible danger long before they evolved to dismiss false alarms. But psychology alone does not explain everything. The witnesses of Point Pleasant were not a single family sharing the same imagination. They were dozens of individuals from different occupations, different ages, and different backgrounds. Many had never met before their reports became public. Several refused interviews because they feared ridicule. Others continued describing their experiences decades later without changing essential details. This is what makes historical mysteries so compelling. The facts rarely divide neatly into truth and fiction. Instead, they occupy an uncomfortable space between certainty and doubt. Then, on the morning of December 15, 1967, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with Gallipolis, Ohio, suddenly collapsed during evening traffic. In less than a minute, vehicles plunged into the freezing Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives. It remains one of the worst bridge disasters in modern American history. Almost immediately, The town connected the catastrophe with the strange sightings of the previous year. Some believed the mysterious figure had been a supernatural warning. Others insisted it was nothing more than coincidence. Engineers later concluded that the bridge failed because of a fracture in a critical suspension component combined with design limitations that were not fully understood when the bridge had been constructed. The collapse had a tragic engineering explanation. Yet for many residents, that explanation never completely replaced the emotional memory of everything that had happened before. Once fear becomes woven into a community's history, it rarely disappears. It becomes folklore. Point Pleasant is far from unique. Across the world, historians have documented places where unexplained events became part of local identity. In Norway, mysterious lights have appeared over the Hesteland Valley for decades, attracting scientists who continue to study them. In Wales, schoolchildren once described unusual aerial sightings that remain debated today. Throughout forests in Europe, villages preserved stories of silent watchers standing beyond the tree line. Stories repeated long before radio, television, or the internet allowed ideas to spread rapidly. Different countries, different cultures, different centuries, yet remarkably similar fears. Why? Anthropologists believe these stories reveal something fundamental about the human condition. Human beings have always lived beside landscapes they could never fully understand. Dense forests concealed predators, mountains hid violent storms, oceans swallowed ships without warning. Long before scientific instruments explained the world, imagination filled the empty spaces left by uncertainty. Sometimes those stories protected communities. Parents warned children not to wander into dangerous woods by telling tales of unseen beings. Travelers respected unfamiliar terrain because legends taught caution where maps could not. Myth, in many cases, became a language for survival. But there is another possibility. Perhaps the real mystery was never the creature. Perhaps it was the town. Think about what happened. Ordinary people noticed something unusual. They shared their experiences. Others became more observant. More witnesses came forward. Journalists arrived. Investigators searched for answers. Scientists proposed explanations. Skeptics challenged them. Believers defended them. Years passed. Generations changed. And still the question remained alive. Not because anyone proved what happened, but because no explanation satisfied everyone. History often remembers certainty. Mysteries survive because certainty never arrives. Today, Point Pleasant embraces its strange past. Visitors arrive from around the world. Museums preserve newspaper clippings and eyewitness accounts, and the story has become part of the town's identity. Some visitors come hoping to solve the mystery. Others come simply to stand in the places where ordinary people once looked into the darkness and wondered if something was looking back. Whether those witnesses encountered an unknown animal, misidentified natural phenomena, the effects of heightened fear, or something that has yet to be fully explained remains an open question. History cannot answer it with complete confidence. Neither can science, nor can folklore. And perhaps that is exactly why the story continues to endure. Because the greatest mysteries are rarely those that offer impossible answers. They are the ones that force us to confront the limits of our own certainty. Maybe nothing was ever hiding in the forest. Maybe something was. But after all these years, the most unsettling truth is not that a town believed something was watching them. It is that once enough people share the same unexplained experience, the boundary between fear, memory, history, and reality becomes almost impossible to see. And somewhere, in the silence between what can be proven and what can only be remembered, the mystery still waits, patiently, quietly, watching those who continue to search for an answer.